What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. We're going to be breaking down WWE Money in the Bank 2024 coming up this Saturday night. Of course, we are going to do our predictions. We're going to run down the card as what it's currently advertised, talk about what we're interested in, what's not doing so much for us, so on and so forth. And who are we? For those people that are brand new, I'm Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And of course, you all listening as well are joining us, so make sure you chime in with your comments below on YouTube or elsewhere if you are, of course, listening to us beyond YouTube, and tell us what you think about our reactions, what you think about this pay-per-view in general, who do you got for these matches, so on and so forth. While you're there on YouTube in particular, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, ring that notification bell to make sure that you have your email alerts set up for the live post shows for both this pay-per-view and NXT Heatwave, which we'll be doing our predictions side of the pay-per-view point later on tonight after NXT. So that'll be up tomorrow, or, like very, very early in the morning when it comes to tomorrow. And if you are also wanting to help us keep the lights on here and keep continuing Smark Out Moment, both on the website and on the YouTube channel, and for that matter, Fanboys Anonymous and everything else under a mango tree, we are in desperate need of getting some funds to help keep this all going. So if you got $1 a month, I keep saying it to everybody, that is going to help out a lot. And it sounds like it's the type of thing that most people are not all that interested in because they think other people are going to do it. And I can tell you that that is not happening. So if you are one of those people that's just like, it'll all sort itself out. We might not have an episode next week as part of the reason for this. And if you want to make sure we do, $1 a month, $5 a month, the Darkcast tier, so on and so forth, Patreon and YouTube's channel membership, it all funnels back to helping this continue, as does picking up the merchandise on Redbubble and TeePublic, or clicking on the thanks button. Major thanks to the super chats as well from last time. I believe it was only Ashton, but Ashton, I think, twice. So thank you for that. And, keep in mind, we also have the Discord server and stuff. If you want to keep that active, that's another thing to keep in mind for that. Fanboys Anonymous, as I mentioned before, always want to do more for that. Never get enough time to do it. If you want to make sure that we do, then take advantage of helping us out on that front. Let's start getting into this Money in the Bank stuff. 5 matches on the card. I would be asking, what do you think that they're going to add to the card? But by now we know they're not. They have not been adding anything more than 5 matches to these cards lately. And I highly doubt that that is going to be different this time around. They are in Toronto, I believe, for this. So with these international pay-per-views that they keep doing, they are very much having this less is more, or less is what you're getting, I should say, not necessarily more, approach. We know we're getting 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches. We're getting some big names on the card. So I am positive WWE is looking at this and going, oh, that's it. We don't need to do anything more. So all the potential other matches that could have been on here, I don't think we need to talk about. They're not going to add them. Let's be honest. No tag titles, no United States title match, so on and so forth. So,
well, they're doing tag titles. So they did women's world title on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing tag titles on Friday. So it sounds like that's your make good and a reason to tune into TV. And I wish there was more spots on the card for people, mostly because it's a 3-hour show anyway. But
yeah,
I like the strategy they're going with.
5 hours if you count the 2-hour countdown kickoff thing, and the kickoff, because they decided to rearrange that. Now we know it's been a couple events. So kickoff for years was the name of their pre-show. Used to be the pre-show, then it became the kickoff for a bunch of years. Now kickoff means press conference that happens prior to pay-per-view in international space. I have no plans on really watching that. And then the countdown is going to be 2 hours, again, of them just running down the card again. 2 hours for 5 matches. It's infuriating, especially when we see so many commercials on these things. So, again, not to belabor the point over and over that we always say, but man, if you're going to put only 5 matches on this card, make it a 2-hour show. And make it just 2 hours, and I would be so much happier. But that's what we're going to do.
I am happier about is the show starting at 7.
Oh, the thing's at 5, the countdown? I thought the countdown
the
started
show's
at
starting
6.
at 7.
Well, that's slightly better in some ways.
So hopefully we're at least onto the post-show scrum thing by 10 instead of 11.
In some ways, I'm down for that being the same or different than, what they do with some of these other international things where it's like, okay, well, we're going to start at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes it works better. Sometimes I'd rather just end it at 3 in the morning or something. But yeah. The 5 matches that are on this card right now, though, let's start breaking them down. Let's talk about the Intercontinental Championship match. It's Bron Breakker challenging Sami Zayn. Bron Breakker had taken out a bunch of different people over the course of the past few weeks since being drafted to Monday Night Raw. Ricochet, of course, he took out of the company, even. He has beaten down Ilya Dragunov. He's had wins over, not even necessarily wins, but like, metaphorical wins over like Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser and all. So he had said that he would totally be in a spot to beat Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. And that was, taken away from him and all. Adam Pearce finally made this official after Sami Zayn said, well, go ahead and let's have the match. And I am very much in the camp of Bron Breakker needs to win this match. I don't know if he necessarily will, because there is a chance that Sami Zayn retains, but I think that that's a mistake. Bron Breakker should have a good match with Sami Zayn. It shouldn't be a squash or anything. And by the end of it, Breakker should hit a spear and he should pin Sami.
So, forgive me, I've said this point a couple times now, but I think that Breakker needs to win here, and I think as Gunther was used as a dominant champion, Breakker can be used as, all right, he's a short-term champion, and not everything needs to be 6 months to a year, and not everything needs to be wait till SummerSlam. I think the right move here is Breakker wins. However, I'll add the asterisk of he loses nothing if he loses here, because Sami Zayn is the guy who beat Gunther. He's a WrestleMania main eventer. He's as solid as you can get in this era.
Yeah, I mean, the right call would be to have Bron Breakker get the victory over Zayn. He's been heavily pushed and well presented since he's come up to Raw. And yeah, it makes no sense for Zayn to retain at this point in time, just because you want to try and elevate the new hot ticket item that you have. What will happen is Bron's going to get disqualified and they'll stretch it out to SummerSlam.
That's what I'm a little worried about, because it is in Toronto, and that maybe they're a little bit worried about having Sami Zayn lose. But to me, that's all the more reason to have him lose, is because of the big reaction that it'll get. And then I look at SummerSlam and I'm like, all right, well, we don't know for sure what the card is. We know some things are kind of lingering. Like we know that Nia Jax is most likely going to face Bayley. It's highly doubtful that Bayley drops that championship beforehand. We know that Gunther has the title shot against whoever wins the World Heavyweight Championship match. We know that we've got some stuff lingering about like Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes and all. There's a potential for a lot of things to happen at SummerSlam, and I would rather Bron Breakker just win this here, and then if they want to stretch it out to SummerSlam, have something else. Like, if you want to still do Sami Zayn versus Bron Breakker, have it be Sami gets a chance to win the belt back, and it's like an ODQ match or something. I don't know what. I want Bron Breakker to win that Intercontinental title. I think that whether it happens here or it happens at SummerSlam, if we go those two pay-per-views and he ends up just not winning it, it's going to be a massive mistake. And the type of thing that would make people just go, I thought that he was going to be a big thing. I guess not. Now's the time. Go ahead and do it. He's clearly getting a good reaction. He's definitely somebody that they're invested in. And it's the perfect title for him to hold right now. I see no reason why they shouldn't just put the belt on him at this pay-per-view. Get a big reaction from the crowd that hates that Sami Zayn lost. And then, put that in a spot where it's like maybe the second match of the night. Actually, what do you guys think will end up being the first thing? Probably the women's ladder match, right? Go like
Yeah,
women's
I
ladder match, a IC title, maybe like 6-man tag or world heavyweight title, and then I mean, I don't know. It kind of depends.
Yeah, just throw the women out of there because there's only one match there's on the card anyway. So just get it out of the way as quickly as possible and then move on to the real action.
I mean, I'm assuming that the main event's going to be the World Heavyweight Championship match. Yeah. But that's not necessarily a guarantee.
The men's ladder match probably stands a good shot, unless they're planning on a certain someone winning and a certain someone cashing in during the main event.
Right. So somewhere in the Intercontinental title thing is going to be like a buffer. Whether it's after the first ladder match or it's midway through the pay-per-view or whatever. But I'm going to go Bron Breakker, despite my best judgment of thinking that they're going to stall.
I'm going to go with Bron Breakker as well. But my opinion can change between now and the pay-per-view for the Fantasy League.
I say that Sami Zayn wins by DQ.
It's overall a smart pick. It's we'll see. When we make our final adjustments right before the pay-per-view. But let's talk about the 6-man tag team match. Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens are up against the Bloodline. They have not yet announced who the 3 people that are wrestling for the Bloodline are, but we've got Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu that are all in the mix. And we know that Paul Heyman's not going to be there because they just powerbombed him through a commentary table last week. And I've been seeing a lot of great memes about this. One of them being like, when you're getting the Gluck Gluck 5,000 from your girl and whatever, and it shows like Heyman's like struggling face, and there's
a bit of the Huck tour.
The Huck tour. The whole setup of the Bloodline moving into SummerSlam that we mentioned, there's going to be Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa at SummerSlam. And I don't know if that means that they're going to put Solo in this match or if they're going to have the 3 others so that way Solo interferes. But I'm leaning much more towards that method. I'm definitely 100% going with the Bloodline winning this. Kevin Owens can take the pin, or they can have Cody take the pin if they want to make him look a little bit weak in comparison. I think Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu are wrestling here. Solo's going to interfere, and then that's going to lead to, the Bloodline got to win, so there's even more of a reason for Solo to go up against Cody.
I'm not being funny when I ask this question. When is the last time Solo Sikoa won a match television?
2024.
Then he beat Kevin Owens a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, good. I'm making sure.
It's not much, though. Yeah.
I'm making sure that he's won a match at some point this year, because the last really big one I remember him getting was over Cena and Saudi. And Solo has to be in this match. The right thing to do is to put Jacob on the outside. Solo has to be in this match. He has to pin Cody. That way you set up a match at SummerSlam. Because otherwise, why is he getting a shot?
For what it's worth, Meltzer and like the rest of Observer is reporting that the plans right now is it's going to be Solo and Guerrillas of Destiny as the trio that takes on the Bloodline with Jacob Fatu on the outside. Which, from just a pure match quality standpoint, it's disappointing because Jacob Fatu has burst onto the scene with a lot of energy, and from the stuff I've seen of him when his time on the Indies and MLW, he's far more athletically gifted than the other 3 members in his faction for the time being. I'd say for the time being, because the likelihood, I think, of this match going is that, yes, the Bloodline will win, but they will win due to Tula Tonga interference.
Hikuleo / Talatanga is certainly somewhere lingering. His deal with New Japan's over. He should be free to go whenever, as far as I'm aware, right?
Well, so he hasn't been announced as a participant in the G1 in any context. El Fantasmo's clearly moved on to being a singles guy now, so their tag team's over. So yeah, it's all but confirmed that he's with WWE. They've even trademarked that name, which everyone would assume is attached to him. So yeah, that'll happen. Just whether it happens on this show or not. And you know what? There's every possibility, because seemingly every show, not every major show, but there's been plenty of shows right now where it's just, okay, now new person joins the Bloodline. First it was like Tama Tonga just after WrestleMania, and then it's Tonga Loa after was it
Backlash?
Whatever show that was. Yeah, Backlash, yeah. At Backlash, yeah. And then Jake Fatu a couple of weeks ago, and then you get Tolo Tonga here as well, and then you have your 5-piece Bloodline, new Bloodline. So that's where I assume it going. I'd say I'd like to see Jacob Fatu in this match instead, but the realistic thing is that if you are having Solo Sikoa challenge Cody Rhodes for the title, which again I would prefer if it was Jacob Fatu challenging for the WWE title, but I mean fundamentally it all boils down, at least from my perspective, of Solo Sikoa's not that good, and he's fine as a henchman enforcer, but he shouldn't be the centerpiece of your faction, especially when you've just brought in a guy who is like more charismatic, better in ring, just overall, just a more complete package. And Solo's going to get exposed in that way a little bit. But, you know, he'll get the win, and so he can challenge Cody at SummerSlam and lose.
So we have, after this, SummerSlam, Bash in Berlin, Crown Jewel, Survivor Series. They might announce some other stuff, but realistically, that's probably what it is. Because more than likely, if they announce anything else, it's probably going to be NXT stuff, like Deadline. So Solo and all, that's happening at SummerSlam. We pretty much know that. That leaves Bash in Berlin, Crown Jewel, and what we can assume is the War Games match. That probably will be Bloodline versus Bloodline. That's not a whole lot of time, realistically speaking, to set up Bloodline versus Bloodline and have a full, like, Roman comes back and Jimmy and Jay are back in the mix and whatever, unless they start really kicking it into gear from SummerSlam. And we got to get Talatanga in there somewhere. I could see him maybe being the big surprise here, just to kind of usher that along even further and make it be like, all right, well, it was 4-on-3, and now it's 5-on-3. Oh my God. You know, we thought that they had figured it all out, but they didn't. How do you guys think? I mean, we'll talk about this when the pay-per-view ends, and we know how SummerSlam is built and all that, but with Bash in Berlin, Crown Jewel, and Survivor Series War Games, where do you think we go with all of this stuff? How are we transitioning to whatever it is that's next?
I think like Lesnar in 21, I think Roman appears at the end of SummerSlam, because it's like almost mirroring what happened. It's like, wait a minute, I thought this guy was never coming back. Except this time Paul Heyman's by his side, and it's like, oh my God, you know, Roman's back and he's pissed off with Solo. And then I think you can maybe get some singles matches, some tag variants at Bash and Crown Jewel, but the end game has to be War Games.
Then what do you do with the championship and The Rock and Roman and Cody? And
Rock could literally stay out until January if he wants to. He could be a nice turning point, maybe as like the other guy in the War Games for, you know, Roman's team. But Rock could stay out. As far as the championship, Cody can kind of slink away, or maybe you get Cody, Roman in Saudi as like a make good for the Saudi people. Like, hey, see, we're giving you the main event of WrestleMania. You know how they like to do that sort of thing. But I can see it being Bloodline means more than Cody. And then when Roman's ready, he's like, no, now I'm coming back for my title, Cody. What do you think, Cal?
I'm not too invested, so I don't care.
Because I'm assuming that like none of these other people, like Tamatanga, Tongaloa, Talatanga, Tonga, and Jacob Fatu, I'm assuming that those four don't get anywhere close to a title shot. It's only Solo maybe Roman against Cody in a rematch, and maybe The Rock. Maybe The Rock ends up beating Cody at Royal Rumble. I don't think by any chance that The Rock is involved in War Games, unless he interferes and, the heel version of Bloodline wins there.
Why he can come in and either do the babyface clean house thing or the I turned heel. He doesn't have to get hurt by entering War Games. It's just an attraction.
I mean, that he won't be like in the match. Like, it's not going to be like Solo, Tonga, Tongaloa, Talatonga, Jacob Fatu, and then The Rock, because that's 6 people already. And they wouldn't risk, The Rock getting injured by wrestling the whole match.
Yeah, so that's why I said like he could join as Roman's like final member, and then do the turn swerve with that, because I think that they're still in their minds like, but it's Rock and Roman. We have to get there. So I think that could be.
Oh, I fully expect it's Rock and Roman at WrestleMania, 100%, and I still think it's for the title too.
I'm a little up in the air as to how I feel about the title right now, because Cody hasn't done this wonderful job where it's like, I never want to go back to the era of Roman ever again. But it's also, I don't want to go back to an era of absentee champions ever again. But there's a lot of moving parts. It's so different from the original Bloodline, because the fun of Roman and the Usos together was they had already dominated their respective fields. The Usos were already like an 8-time tag champions or whatever. Roman was already the guy even before the Tribal Chief run. With these guys, they're being brought in as lackeys. So it's a different feel and a different vibe. But I do think there's a chance that the Girls of Destiny could be tag champions. I do think there's a chance Jacob Fatu could get near Cody and a title shot. Because wait till Jacob Fatu impresses the world.
I might have to map out something a little bit later on, trying to figure out what I would do with all this, because there's a lot of names up in the air for a lot of this, but I think we're all in agreement Bloodline's winning this match, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's Talatonga, Jacob Fatu, or something else, like, by hook or by crook, they're going to win. And then once we get to SummerSlam, then maybe, we'll talk about that, of course, when we get to a little bit further down the road in July, but I don't think any of us are expecting Solo to win that championship. And then, we got Bash Berlin, we got Crown Jewel, we got War Games and stuff, so we'll sort that all out. But Bloodline,
they play games with the world title so much it wouldn't be like a complete, like, oh my god, this is unprecedented, but I'd be very surprised.
Well, the world title match, we'll get into it in a little bit. Before we do that, let's talk about the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Io Sky, Chelsea Green, Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Zoey Stark are your 6 people, 3 from Raw, 3 from SmackDown. As far as ranks go, I put up something on EWN about this earlier today. I think that the one that stands the absolute lowest chance of winning this is Io Sky. Not only has Damage Control not been doing super, super well, they got some wins here and there, but Io's been upset with the way that it's been, and she won last year, and I don't think that she's going to be winning a second time in a row just to, cash in and win again and all. I'd be fine with Io winning, but I gotta be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the lineup for this in general, so I'm not feeling like anybody stands out as like the best possible option, but I'd rank Io last. I'd put Zoey Stark above her. She's just not ready for the championship and all. I'd put Lyra just a slight bit above her, and then we would start getting into the fun options. There's always a chance that Naomi does get brought into the whole Bloodline thing, but they haven't done it by now, so they're probably not. I'm really down to these 2. I think it's time for them to potentially have somebody fail for the women. every single woman that's won Money in the Bank has cashed in successfully. Maybe give it to Chelsea Green and maybe have her be the first one that fails. But if somebody's going to succeed, I think this has to be Tiffany Stratton. And I'm kind of imagining that it's Bayley versus Nia at SummerSlam, and either Stratton comes in and steals the pin in some fashion, or Bayley retains, Nia beats her up afterward, and then Tiffany Stratton cashes in afterward like that. But I think by the time SummerSlam is over with, Tiffany Stratton's champion.
Yeah, I think it comes down to Chelsea and Tiffany as well. I'm not as sold on Chelsea needing to fail. I don't think somebody needs to fail just in general. Like, yeah, okay, no woman has failed yet, but also I know men have failed that I don't want to see anybody fail. You know, I'm still in a big mindset of rehab that case, make it feel like you're invincible if you have this. I think Chelsea should win. I think Tiffany will win. And as far as your rankings, I'd put Zoey Stark at the very bottom. Nobody thinks she's winning. EO always has a shot because she's kind of in that range now. Naomi would be fun, but I think only stans on Twitter would be really into that. So I don't think they're going to go with her. I think it's Tiffany, but I'd be super down for Chelsea winning.
So out of the options, there's some good people in it, but I think just out of the realistic options, Tiffany's the only one that should and will win the briefcase. It's like Chelsea Green is a comedy wrestler. I don't want comedy wrestlers holding Money in the Bank. We saw what that happened with Otis. Chelsea is that as well. So you don't and we don't need to have somebody as, you know, entertaining as she can be. We don't need somebody who is not that great of a wrestler and is just known for her comedy stuff in contention to win the world title. Like, you've already currently got your women's world championship on someone who's just more interested in touching Dom's dangly bits rather than wrestling. So that's you don't want to have another situation on the other side of things. I mean, fuck, you're gonna have Nia Jax holding the title soon as well, so that makes it even worse.
Do you think Nia gets it, or do you think Tiffany cashes in first?
And Nia gets the title.
Yeah, I could see it, but I could also see that being a good way for Tiffany to sneak in, you know?
Yeah, I'm less inclined to believe that Nia's winning that belt. Because I kind of think that they're going to end up doing Stratton's the next champion, she drops it to Charlotte, and then Charlotte wrestles Jade at WrestleMania.
Oh god, I'm so happy I no longer watch this shit anymore.
You completely skipped over Bianca.
Yeah.
No, I think Bianca and Jade feud before Mania.
I don't care about Bianca and Jade. I care about Bianca and Charlotte.
Oh, they already did that though.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they had their like 6 matches with like Asuka and stuff.
Well, that doesn't count. They haven't had a 1-on-1 yet.
Nah, who cares?
Out of the other options, like EO's already won. Obviously, I'm a big fan of EO, but she won the briefcase last time, and they're currently going through like a Damage Control, like total split storyline. So see how that goes. Naomi, I think, is washed, so I wouldn't like to see her do anything. Zoey Stark's got no charisma. Lyra's the other like big option. I think that she's very impressive, and I think that she's actually fitting on Raw very well from the bits and pieces that I've seen of her. So, like, I think she's the one that comes closest until Tiffany gets the briefcase down. So, yeah, Tiffany's the obvious choice for me.
It's 3 votes for Tiffany Stratton. We'll see if we're right on Saturday, but let's move over to the men's championship contract match for the ladder match. Jey Uso, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre. A much better lineup than the women, I think. The women. And some more options, but there are definitely some people that are just, there's no chance. Andrade is the one I would rank the absolute lowest here. Andrade's not winning this. I'd probably put Chad Gable as the next lowest option. And then we start getting around to the people that actually could win this. I don't know for sure how I would end up fully ranking everybody, but I think LA Knight probably would be my number 3 lowest ranked. I just can't picture LA Knight necessarily having this and trying to cash in. But between Jay and Melo and McIntyre, it's kind of tough because I look at Melo and I think, oh, that's a really good option to keep the Money in the Bank briefcase on him and have him hold it for many, many months and like give him something of like a championship to kind of boost up his stock. But is he going to be cashing in by this time next year? I don't know. He needs to win a mid-card title first. So I think he's in the match to have like some good moments and to look strong and to be somebody that they're like, okay, we care about this guy, but not yet. And then between Jay and Drew McIntyre, Drew has already said he wants to cash in on this show and win the championship. Jey Uso, I don't know. And then, of course, we have the World Heavyweight Championship match. This is a last chance match, so there are stipulations for both sides of this that are beyond the championship, because we might as well talk about these both lumped together. Damian Priest is going in as champion, and Seth Rollins is challenging. If he loses this match, he won't be able to challenge again as long as Priest is champion, which is funny that they're doing that. And then they did the other thing with Wesley and Obafemi. So they like this stipulation right now. Now, if Rollins wins, not only does he win the championship, but Priest has to leave the Judgment Day. And there's been a lot of teases lately, even more so than for the past few months and stuff, that Damian Priest is having issues with Finn Balor and really, having issues with Dominic Mysterio, with the whole Liv Morgan thing and all. I don't know for sure when Rhea is coming back, of course. But here's the first question I have for you guys, and we're all circling back here. I know I'm saying a lot. Do you guys think we're getting Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan at SummerSlam?
Potentially. I could see them dragging that out. I could see it being a 6-person. But I do think Rhea and Liv will be in the ring at SummerSlam.
I think it's impossible to predict until we know anything more about Rhea's injury status.
What would you think that the 6-person would be?
Rhea, Dom, and Priest, Finn, JD, and Liv.
So that implies that Priest is not champion.
But I think I could see a world where Rollins wins and just drops it to Gunther.
Because that's another element of this, is Gunther's going up against whoever the World Heavyweight Champion is. So it could be Priest, it could be Rollins, it could be one of the Money in the Bank people, and then where's Gunther involved? So I am all over the place with this, but I am currently thinking Rollins doesn't beat Priest. And then the split with the Judgment Day happens in some other fashion. I don't think Drew McIntyre wins Money in the Bank and cashes in. But I do think that he probably wins Money in the Bank. And CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, that's a thing we have to get around to. This is tough. Do they give it to Jey Uso just to give him something? And then if so, what the hell does Jey Uso do with the Money in the Bank?
If Jey Uso leaves as champion, that's the closest thing I would get to being like, all right, now I can maybe see a title belt going to Solo. Because, I'm sorry, the only interesting thing Jey Uso has done is the stuff with his family. And I can't see Jey beating Roman. I can see Jey beating Solo.
And then, dropping it to Gunther right afterward or something, maybe? Or
No, I said Solo.
Oh, cashing in on Solo. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but which, ultimately, I could play the what if game all day. If you're asking me, gun to my head, be realistic, I think it's Punk doesn't let McIntyre win the briefcase.
That's another whole thing. Do they have Drew McIntyre get screwed over because of CM Punk? But then they also have the Wyatt Six have been going after Chad Gable, and you also have the option that the Bloodline does something with Jay, which not necessarily as frequent of an option. And you also have the option of Logan Paul could screw over LA Knight.
So I'll give you like my least likely scenarios, my most hated scenario in my mind, and I'll go through all that. Like Andrade is just not winning.
He's not.
He's just not winning.
Are you going to try to make any kind of a case? I doubt it, Callum, for Andrade.
I mean, the case being that as I say, I don't really see it. I don't think any of these guys should be. The only one that I think should win the Money in the Bank briefcase is Drew McIntyre. The rest of them are a bit weird. I don't think this is. I actually think the women's lineup is stronger than this one in terms of like actual people that could win a world championship.
I think.
So then let's take Andrade out of the equation for all 6 of those people, the 2 people in the world title match, CM Punk and Gunther, because there's about 10 people that we need to factor in here. Andrade's out of the mix. He's not getting that Money in the Bank. Then it would be, I guess the next person that we could probably rule out would be Chad Gable, right?
No. Gable's
Yeah, I'd say if McIntyre doesn't win, Chad Gable's my favorite to win.
Really?
Gable is in my top 3. Gable,
Really?
Mello, or McIntyre.
That's interesting because I'm like, okay, there's no chance that Gable ends up cashing in, winning a world title, and doing all that.
I don't think you're watching the shows as closely.
I would also say that we always come into these things when guys saying that these guys have no chance of winning. We probably said the same thing about when Baron Corbin and Sheamus won the briefcases. So it's like
that's
so
true. I could always literally go with Otis was fucking Money in the Bank for like 6 months.
Because I'll go into this until they kind of prove otherwise. I'm going to go into this thinking that they have no idea what they're going to do with the person who wins this briefcase once they've won it. So yeah,
that's why I think it can't be Drew. Because I think they know what they want to do with Drew.
If Drew's made the kind of the vow, or he's made some sort of like commitment to he's going to hold on to this brief, or he's going to cash in the briefcase immediately afterwards, or at the earliest opportunity, then he can't win the briefcase here because he's not going to. Well, the only way that would happen, and this is another stupid scenario, but the time that they might consider is that Drew does come out and cashes in the briefcase, and then Punk costs him the match, and then he loses.
I'd be so pissed.
The match to Damian Priest.
See, that's an option though. Like, it's not my favorite option, but there is a very good chance that could happen because we know that they keep doing this thing with Punk screwing over Drew McIntyre, and Drew McIntyre recently beat up CM Punk to where you would think that he wouldn't be able to show up and all that. But they could very well go with the whole like he being Drew wins Money in the Bank, and it's like, okay, we know that we have to be having our head on a swivel. He said he wants to cash in, and that's especially true if the World Heavyweight title match hasn't happened yet. Like, they do the ladder match and then the World Heavyweight title match. Then it's a matter of, he said he wants to cash in. Is he going to cash in during the match? And then that's going to be their way of being like, well, Rollins didn't beat Priest, so Priest doesn't have to leave Judgment Day. And Rollins didn't lose the match to Priest, so that's going to offset the whole not able to challenge as long as Priest is champion thing, because Priest isn't champion because Drew McIntyre is there, and or if CM Punk interferes and then that costs him and then Priest retains or something. And then you factor Gunther in there though, and then you go, okay, well, it can't be Punk versus Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam, because they already said it's Gunther. And I really highly doubt that it's going to be a triple threat with Gunther involved. I don't think we're going to get a fatal 5-way by any means with Priest, Rollins, Gunther, Punk, and McIntyre. So if we get Punk and McIntyre at SummerSlam, McIntyre has to lose the ladder match and or not successfully cash in the World Heavyweight Championship match. That's how it has to go. Maybe Punk's not ready to go. And maybe we get Drew McIntyre versus Gunther, and that's just a weird thing that's happening. I don't understand that, but sure, whatever. And maybe Rollins wins, and that's a whole thing. This is really fucking difficult this time. But you guys are thinking that Chad Gable might have a chance to do this and just not be factored into this at all and just kind of keep the briefcase for a little bit?
I think that there's a very clear sign that they want. Chad Gable's like one of the 5 or 6 most important people on Raw right now. He did the thing with Sami. He's doing the thing with the Wyatts. There's something to watching Chad, because maybe despite all the Wyatt stuff, Chad comes out on top here. That's my main thought. And I do think it's a nice little give back / signing incentive for Chad Gable having put pen to paper.
I mean, as I've got little faith that they ever want to do anything with Chad Gable. I think that even him re-signing is just a sign that he just wanted to stay. It was either a mixture of money or he just wanted to stick around and didn't really ever have any real intention or designs on leaving. Because the fact of the matter is, he re-signed and they immediately had him lose the title match to Sami Zayn, and now then he got killed on camera, and now he's playing spooky ghost with the Wyatts or whatever, just dancing around that stuff. So, but yeah, maybe this is a way of giving him something back for either re-signing or just say, oh, you're pretty prominently featured. We aren't giving you the Intercontinental title. We're actually going to put you in a position where you might win the world title at some point by having the Money in the Bank instead. And that can lead into the Otis thing as well, because Otis held Money in the Bank beforehand as well, so that could be part of their story moving forward as well. If they decide to transition into that, we know the Wyatt thing's going on, but it's just a bit of a weird amalgamation of people right now. But yeah, I mean, I put Chad over pretty much everyone else in the match. That's not Drew, just because Drew is the most prominent name in it.
See, I look at Chad Gable and I think he's in here so the Wyatts can pop up. And that's it.
Yeah.
Well, and to be a good person for the match, because of course he's going to wrestle well.
I mean, I think that he's here for the Wyatts to pop up, but as has been demonstrated, even if the Wyatts do turn up and attack Gable, it's not going to affect him because they've already shown that they attacked Gable and Gable was back right as rain next week and qualified for Money in the Bank. So I could totally envision a world where they come out and try and interfere with Gable, almost maybe even beat him up and leave him at the side of the ring, and then a bit more of the match happens, and then Gable just climbs up and wins the briefcase.
Unless it's a red herring and you think they're going to go for Gable again, and they do go for Uso.
Could be, because there's something to be said about why they announced Chad Gable versus Jey Uso is happening next week.
Because you mentioned the Otis thing. That was originally what Chad said when he announced he was going to go for Money in the Bank. It's just nobody remembers that because he got immediately killed off by the Wyatts. But I think there's enough focus on Chad that he's in my top 3 for potential winners.
So let's break down the LA Knight side of it. I don't think any of us really have any faith that LA Knight's winning this. He's here to be a big name, to be a fan favorite option, but realistically, he's probably not going to win, right?
My worst case scenario is this dude wins and then says, I'm using it to face Logan Paul. I will scream if they do this shit again where somebody wins Money in the Bank and cashes it in on the US title. I'd be really upset. So no, I don't think it's likely, but we know it's not unheard of.
I mean, it technically could be their way of being you don't want to give me a United States title match where I'm forcing you to because I'm announcing that for SummerSlam.
I legitimately think that would be the worst case scenario, and that includes Andrade winning. That to me is the worst case scenario, where this dude wins and just cashes in on Logan Paul.
It's an option, though.
I don't think even as lackluster as I mostly think Triple H's booking is, it's that's a bridge million miles too far for him. He's not that stupid. So LA Knight's facing Logan Paul for the United States title at SummerSlam, so he's not winning the briefcase here. He doesn't need to. He pinned Logan Paul in the match, so he should be able to just get a title shot anyway.
And I do think that there's a really good chance that Logan Paul comes in here and screws him over, but that it not necessarily doesn't have to happen, especially if we end up getting the Wyatts involved and CM Punk involved and all that. You know, you don't want to have too many interferences during one Money in the Bank ladder match, but I could see LA Knight being the guy that like is just about ready to grab the briefcase, and then that's where somebody like Drew McIntyre wins. But I can't picture LA Knight factoring in. There's no chance LA Knight factors into the world title match for like the Cody situation. So then to swap over into the Monday Night Raw stuff and do the World Heavyweight Championship, it's not going to be LA Knight. Melo, I think we can all agree, he's here to look like a young upstart that has the chance to do this in the future, but that he's not going to win, right?
I think Melo wins.
Really?
If Drew McIntyre doesn't win, I think Melo wins.
Just to put the rocket on him and be like, look, it's going to happen in the future.
Just to be like, we went with Tiffany and we went with Melo. We're invested in the future of WWE. Yada, yada, yada. I think he's in my top 3 because I still think Drew makes the most sense. But if it's not Drew, I think it's Melo.
Where do you think he would end up cashing in? When, where, / who? Whatever.
See, that's where it gets so difficult.
Who, what, where, when, why?
Because I don't see it being anytime soon. You know? Like, there's no reason for it to be anytime soon. But I do think that it would be important in the long run of being like, see, he won Money in the Bank, and we're trying with our new guys. That's why I think Melo would win.
Well, let's get into the Jay side of it. The more that we talk, the less that I think that there's any chance that Jay wins. Not that I really had him super high up to begin with, but he was kind of my number 2, and now he's kind of my number 4 or so. He does have a match against Chad Gable next week. I just don't think that's going to be, Mr. Money in the Bank is going up against Chad Gable. I don't see a scenario where he cashes in on anybody. I don't think that he is in a spot for that to really make a whole lot of sense. But he is the guy that's on the poster. They did do some kind of a mock-up for the whole briefcase, the Yeet thing. They could go with Jey Uso, and it wouldn't be the absolute craziest thing in the world.
Yeah, it's like Jey Uso is just a catchphrase. So, it's totally not out of the question that he wins it, but like
Eat in the Bank is a terrible. It'd
be quite low down.
Yeah,
it'd be quite low down in like the annals of people that have won it. I don't think he's got it to be a world champion. So it feels like if he were to win it, my immediate thought will be, okay, how we get the briefcase off of Jey Uso.
And for all we know, they have some kind of plan for that too. It could be like Jey Uso wins Money in the Bank, and then ends up being like The Rock takes the briefcase off of him, and then, like some kind of weird thing.
The weird thing is that it really feels like the world title situations on both shows are sewn up. Like we know we're getting Gunther. We know we're getting. Eventually, it's going to be Solo Cody. Eventually, that'll lead back to Roman and potentially The Rock. It doesn't feel like there's any room in here for, okay, and here's where a Melo slides in, and here's where a Drew slides in. And maybe that's the plan. Maybe the plan is just give it to Drew and let Punk cost him to fail the cash in, so it's immediately out of play. But then I feel like that'd be a waste of a ladder match.
And then that's even more so a reason to make sure that somebody like Chelsea Green doesn't win the women's, because then it becomes, well, you don't want to waste both of them, right? And then, I mean, at the end of the day with this, Drew McIntyre is currently my number 1 pick to win the ladder match. And then the World Heavyweight Championship scene, Priest, Rollins, you got Punk, you got Gunther. Right now at 4:07 p.m., my opinion might change at 4:10 for all we know. I think Drew McIntyre wins the ladder match. Priest, Rollins have their match. Drew McIntyre tries to cash in. CM Punk screws Drew McIntyre. I don't know if I lean towards Priest or Rollins, but I'm kind of thinking that it might hit, the Gunther thing's throwing me off so much. I think it might just still be Priest retaining. And then no, because then Gunther and Priest doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then maybe SummerSlam. I guess it depends on how many matches they plan on having at SummerSlam too. Because if we're looking at Logan Paul, LA Knight, Cody and Solo, Rhea and Liv, Bayley and Nia, Gunther and Blank. That's already at wait, is that 5 or 6? It's one of those two. And then if we have Punk and Drew McIntyre or whatever, that would be at 6 or 7. And there's a lot of names that aren't on that card. No Randy Orton. No.
I think SummerSlam is going to be a longer show. I don't think it'll be 2 nights. I think they're saving that for 2026. Mm-hmm. But I think SummerSlam will be a longer show. Yeah, because you'll get like Randy and KO versus Guerrillas of Destiny, or Randy and KO against Jacob Fatu, or maybe just Randy versus Jacob Fatu. That'd be a fun match. You know?
But we could get Damian Priest versus Finn Balor or something, but they did just win the tag titles too. So then, man, I don't know.
They unfortunately set up like Awesome Truth wants to win the tag titles at SummerSlam.
That's another match to add to that. Yeah.
So I think SummerSlam is just going to be a longer card. I think, gun to my head at 4:09 p.m., I'm going to go with Drew as my top pick to win. I foresee Punk costing him the ladder match because I don't want them to waste the briefcase. And if that does happen, I see it going to Melo. But if Drew wins here, I think Drew cashes in and fails, and you get Rollins, Gunther at SummerSlam just because that's the better match than Priest and Gunther.
So I mean, I'm going to go with McIntyre winning because I think that he's the most logical sense. Even if he just ends up like lying about him cashing in later on tonight, and he's just going to hold on to it for a while, because I just see the long-term game being he cashes in on CM Punk when CM Punk wins the title, or cashes in on a CM Punk match when CM Punk is facing for the world title, and then he gets the title instead. And that leads down to them fighting for the title at WrestleMania or some big event. And then, then I would say that probably go with Priest beating Rollins. Just because like Priest won't be champion much longer anyway, so that's Seth Rollins' stipulation about he can't challenge for the title again. Well, Priest won't be champion past SummerSlam anyway. So yeah, that would be the route that I would go with. The question would kind of be, the question would be like, what would Seth otherwise do at SummerSlam? So maybe they are just. This one's probably the hardest one to decide for me because Priest like could just retain because he's been the champion for this amount of time. You might as well go to SummerSlam to drop it to Gunther. But like Priest could do something else with the Judgment Day, whereas Rollins doesn't actually have anything else that he could do, or nothing immediately that stands out as lined up for him to do at SummerSlam if he doesn't win the title here. So maybe it actually does make more logical sense that Rollins wins the title, just holds it for a month and drops it to Gunther.
And then you got Bash in Berlin right afterward, which you would assume is like, wouldn't that be the better option for Gunther? Like, why do this at SummerSlam just because, well, it used to be.
No, because they want to set the precedent. This isn't about what it used to be. They want to set the precedent going forward that, like, King of the Ring winner, SummerSlam main event.
But that's what it used to be. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I think for them it was always, we could do it. Gunther, they could do fucking Gunther Dragunov at Bash in Berlin. And it's not even that far out of the question because Dragunov has been presented as a top guy, as like a main event level guy. He just headlined Raw last night. They could just do that and go, well, we've got all this other stuff on the card. It's Cody, Jacob Patu in the main. Like there's a lot of interesting puzzle pieces, and then it somehow also falls off because as much as they do have a lot of moving parts, how interested are you in these moving parts? So sometimes it doesn't feel like, oh, well, we've got a stacked lineup for SummerSlam. I think ultimately, the more I consider it, the more I say Rollins walks out as champion. We get Rollins going there. Maybe Punk does stop McIntyre from cashing in, and Rollins can get in Punk's face like, I don't need your help. Get the fuck away from me. Keep that thing hot, because we know that was a proposed WrestleMania main event. And
that's another thing too, is if they want to build a little bit more into that, Punk can screw McIntyre, and then in the process, Rollins gets all mixed up, and then Priest is able to win. So then Rollins can be like, hey, I wouldn't have lost if it wasn't for Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. And then you get Priest and Gunther at SummerSlam, and I guess Punk and McIntyre, and then you start building towards Punk and Rollins for WrestleMania. And I mean, maybe you even do something like Rollins as special guest referee of Punk and McIntyre or something. And then past the point of McIntyre being out of the mix with the Money in the Bank, and Priest, that stipulation that if Rollins loses this, he can't challenge as long as Priest is champion. Priest loses to Gunther. And then at Bash in Berlin, you get Rollins versus Gunther, because Rollins goes like, hey, well, now Priest isn't champion, so I deserve a title match, and I'm going to go up against Gunther. This is going to be one of those things that after Money in the Bank, we're probably going to have so much better of an idea of what the whole rest of the year leading up to WrestleMania is going to be than, I mean, when it comes to SummerSlam and stuff too, that's another whole thing. But it sounds simple and it sounds stupid to say it, but once we know this, I think we know a hell of a lot more, and then we'll backtrack and go, oh, I see where they were going. But there's just too many options right now. So I'm going to say at least as far as 4:15 p.m., Drew McIntyre wins the ladder match, tries to cash in, fails. Priest walks out with the championship.
All right, I'll say at 4:15, McIntyre wins the briefcase, goes to cash in, fails, Rollins wins the World Heavyweight title.
And it's still 4:15. What about you, Cal?
And I'll just echo what Rob said. I think that Rollins is winning. Now I think that Rollins is winning the world title just because there's an obvious pathway for Priest to do something else, and yeah, McIntyre wins the briefcase but doesn't cash in, because after he wins the briefcase, he's immediately attacked by CM Punk, and so they get brawl out of the arena, so he's not around to do the cash in.
I would prefer that, where he doesn't, like, it's not a null and void contract, but like he just doesn't get to cash in.
All right, everybody. Well, of course, we were going to find out more information about this when it comes to SmackDown on Friday. Maybe they change things up. Maybe they don't. Highly doubt that they're really going to change up too much. But then on Saturday, we will have the countdown to NXT, the countdown to Money in the Bank starting at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then the pay-per-view starts at 7. So after the event is over with, we'll have the immediate post-show following that. Break down what happened, what we liked, what we didn't like, all that good stuff. And then, of course, we also have later on tonight, we're going to have the Pay-Per-Viewpoint preview of NXT Heatwave, which will be following on Sunday. We'll have a Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show immediately following that, too. So stay tuned for those things coming your way. The hot tags this week, a little bit up in the air. Maybe might be lumped in somewhere else. I don't know 100% for sure. But we'll keep you posted on that. And, anything else in the meantime, you can find them all at smarkoutmoment.com. You can find everything, of course, on the YouTube channel, as well as the Spotify and Amazon Music, and so on and so forth, different playlists and stuff. But if you are all over the place, make sure you just go to amangotree.com and you'll see the links to Smark Out Moment stuff, Fanboys Anonymous stuff, and my personal stuff that's outside of those two things, whether it's the Letterboxd or my Facebook and Twitter and such. Make sure you're following all of that stuff. Show your support from anything under a mango tree to help the rest of it grow. Make sure you're also following what Rob and Callum are up to.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere at Dude Police. You can check out my work on Fightful, MovieWeb. I've been on a lot of podcasts today, so check out True Heel Heat's raw review of the July 1st episode. Check out the Rumor and Innuendo podcasts on ad-free shows from the last 2 days. I'm on there as well. Check out the Greg Gagne Magnum TA podcast, Straight Talk with the Boss, on One True Sport. I produce that. I'm not on camera there, but that's still supporting me. And I thank you all for the support.
So you can find me on Twitter at Wakemaster14. Check out the Power Rankings every Saturday over on smarkamoment.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And while you're there, you can also check out the Fantasy League. So our Money in the Bank predictions will play a part in our Fantasy League teams moving forward. Who gets to pick what, who gets any additional bonuses for the next round of the Fantasy League leading up to SummerSlam. But for now, just check out who's doing well, who's picking up points as we head into Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank will be a high-scoring event as well. Both winners in the ladder matches will get plenty of points for their respective teams. So, yeah, follow that along, www.fantasyleague.com, or find it through smarkamoment.com.
And of course, let us know what all you have to say. Drop your predictions in the comments below. Keep in mind that we also have the Discord and the page on smarkoutmoment.com and Facebook and Twitter and the Megamaniacs on Facebook. There's a million different ways for you to leave your comments. So tell us what you are expecting and what you're excited for and what you're not excited for, what you think about what we have to say, everything across the board there. And we will see you next up with the Money in the Bank follow-up of the Pay-Per-View-Point stuff with the Heat Wave side of it. And then eventually, come back around to Money in the Bank too. But adios for now, everybody. That's going to do us in. Thanks for listening, as always. And we'll see you then. This has been another Smark Out Moment. And we're being counted out.